Ladies and gentlemen, this is kind of one of my favorite times of year because we get to talk about all kinds of fascinating stuff. And today's a big day, and there's a lot going on. And I've got some friends in the studio. Now, friends, while I know your names, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves and your roles, and then we'll get into it. Hi.
Sounds good. Hi, Cam. Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome.
I'm Erica, and I work at the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust. I wear a lot of hats there, but today I'm here representing our Vital Signs launch day. I'm very excited.
Yeah, and I'm Janessa Dornsdotter. I can see why you didn't want to take a stab at that one.
I didn't even know Dornsdotter. That's why I'm excited.
I'm also with the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust, working as the Partnerships for Conservation Coordinator.
Wow. So we have a beautiful document in front of us, and I've seen it over the years. The last one was a little while ago.
2018.
2018. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. I was going to say 2020. So it's been a while. And is that due to, I don't know, COVID?
Certain interruptions
among other things?
Well, we've been doing the report since 2012. So This is an amazing time. It's been over 10 years looking at our region. And but it's been 5 years, 2018. And so there's a lot of things have changed.
So let's talk about, first of all, in case people don't know, and let's just do a bit of an introduction about the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust. There's an office right down the street. We're on Main Street. It doesn't matter the exact address, although we will tell people because today there's something going on where people can come live and hang out.
That's right. It's our big Vital Signs launch day. So I guess I can start and just hopefully fill people in if they're not familiar with the CBT. We're the steward of the United Nations Biosphere designation for Clayoquot Sound. So we are here living in this gorgeous biosphere, and we also function as a community foundation. So really finding ways to support the health of our communities and our ecosystem interchangeably. And Vital Signs is a really great example of one way that we can do that.
And let's explain exactly what Vital Signs is.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to go ahead, Janessa? I get so excited to talk about this because every listener today should find this interesting. I mean, if you have ever sat with your family, your friends, your neighbors, and talked about finding a place to live, catching a boat to get to the grocery store, looking for healthcare or programs for your kids, I mean, even when and where salmon fishing is going to open. I mean, these are things we talk about every day. There's going to be something in this report for you. Vital Signs is really just about taking the pulse of the region and our communities. It's about looking at indicators of the health of the people and the communities we live in to try and help us better understand our priorities, what matters to us, are we thriving, are we doing well, and how we can advocate for ourselves in this amazing region.
I'm blown away by the amount of work that goes into this, the amount of information that is in this tiny little book. It's not that tiny, it's quite big and beautiful, but we'll talk about that too. But I've already learned a lot. I had it only a day, and I've learned a lot about our communities. And what it does is it incites me, something in me. I just have a million more questions, and I'm very surprised by what I see by some of these things. How do you get the information and gather all this massive amount of information that gets in there? Can we talk about that process a bit? And who's the team and how many people, and holy mackerel.
Yeah, we have an incredible team working on this at the CBT office. We also have the incredible Adrian Mason as our project manager and editor of the Vital Signs book. And yeah, we go out into community and we ask the questions that need to be asked. We call, email, engage with people to get the information that we need. Our region is really unique in that we have communities across the water, and we have communities here in Tofino and Ucluelet. But the census data doesn't always see things at that level. It doesn't really recognize the uniqueness of the region. And so, yeah, we take a lot of census data and then we go out into the community and fill in the gaps that we need to fill in.
Wow. And
I think we started in February this year.
and would you say Adrian Mason, and then are you the lead, or what are your exact roles? Like, you both gather different information for your specific expressions in this piece of work, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, each of the people who work at the CBT sort of have their own beat, and so we're able to sort of, show the region what we've been working on and exemplify everything that's been going on in the region through that.
I'm amazed. So before we get into the diving in, because we're just going to go off like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
Today, people can come to the actual Clayoquot Biosphere Region office. And what is going on today?
We have an open house 3 to 6 p.m. today. It's at our office. It's 316 Main Street, which is just near here. It's right beside the sea kayaking shop, and we're going to have snacks, and we're going to have coffee. We're going to have copies of the report. Come grab them. We'll have a few people speaking about it at 4, so you can join us for that, or just drop by anytime and grab a stack of reports, hand them out, share them.
All right. Now, the time you've all been waiting for. Let's get into this. So let's
this is what we breathe, Cam.
I just really am impressed by this, and I guess I get excited because I just learned. I don't want to jump too far ahead. There's so much, but I just learned that I would go around and normally I'd say, it's not just Tofino and Ucluelet. There are many other communities, but when I read this, I usually think 8, but there are 10 here.
So I think that's actually really important to share. When we talk about the region, we are talking from the north, Heshquit, Hot Springs Cove, Apitsit, Tofino, Tyastanis, Aneswista, Atatsu, Ucluelet, Makoa, and everywhere in between as well. We forget there's a lot of space in between those communities too.
Right. I was happy just right away to see that. And then, so this is the region at a glance section, which is in the beginning of the whole thing. You have median age, proportion of residents that identify as Indigenous, population by age group, population of West Coast communities, and population growth. Wow.
Yeah, this is actually really surprising a lot of time. I think the biggest messages are that we have a really young population here. I don't think that's a shock to anyone, but when our median age is 39 and then for BC it's 48, I mean, that's incredible. We really have young people here. And it's, and there's also a lot more younger families staying here. We're seeing that in more students in the schools. There's a huge increase in number of kids in schools out here. And also just, I think what we have to remember by looking at the region is, we do. I certainly live in Tofino, and we think a lot about Tofino, and this is where our hospital is, and a lot of the major resources. But there's 7,000 people all using the same resources, so it's really important to know how many people live here, because that's a lot of the time how decisions are made about resources and funding.
Well, let's say the number is 7,626 based upon the information we have. How much, for example? How do you determine if that's actually accurate? For example, maybe there's 8,260. Does everybody report? What is the potential for, I don't want to use the word error, because error is not the right word, for, what's the word I'm looking for? For cushion.
But that, you're right, that number is not accurate. Yeah. It is the best we can do. And we really put a lot of thought into this because if you look at the government data, it's like 20% less. They think, when we actually dig into how many people live here, we already have discovered 20% more people live here than is acknowledged. And we still think that's under. We have a lot of transient people here. We have a lot of people coming and going. We have a lot of people who aren't counted in a lot of different ways. It's really hard just to even know who lives here.
Can you make an estimate? For example, I would make up a number looking at the 7,626, however that was reported. There's got to be a couple thousand more people.
I couldn't come up with a number, but we know it's low. We know it's low.
Chatting. This is moving away from the vital signs, factual, beautiful brochure, just into the realm of open conversation.
Asking a data nerd to estimate.
Oh my gosh, I know that's my role in the team. Is I'm definitely the resident data nerd. So.
Well, you know what? It's really important to know that, because let's move along a little bit. Sure. Some of these things that I read, I don't know exactly the emotion that they conjure with me, but I would call it concern, or, it makes me really think about stuff. So let's talk about the living wage, because I think this is a big deal, part of the information, and this affects all of us and the people that come here from all over to work and serve in our community that is largely based on tourism.
That is a huge takeaway from this report, is just how reliant we are on tourism. Over a third of people, that's where they rely on getting their income from. We've also looked at the fact that we had the road closures earlier this year with the wildfires and what significant impact that had on our economy.
I think I read $44 million.
$44 million was the estimate.
But that was also within a certain time frame, right?
I think it was 10 days. It
was like 10 days. So imagine that probably rippled.
Yeah.
And that's not even including Port Alberni.
No, not at all.
That's just mind blowing.
And even thinking to COVID, in the province, most communities, maybe a quarter of people were getting benefits because they were out of work. And here on the coast, it was almost half. It was almost 50% of people. So that just tells you how reliant we are on tourism.
Wow.
And what does that mean to
us? Living wage.
Yeah.
Data nerd. That's a compliment, right? I think you take it as a compliment.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Okay. Phew.
Yeah, the living wage is okay. So we all know minimum wage.
Yep.
Minimum wage is decided by the government, and what's the minimum amount you can make per hour as an hourly wage. But the living wage is about if we consider someone to have a good life here on the coast, that they're able to meet their needs and take care of their family, what would they actually need to be making on an hourly basis? And so this takes into account obviously housing and food, transportation, but it also includes things like buying your kids clothes. I mean, having a cell phone is a necessity today. It's not an option anymore.
Or a vehicle where we live.
Yeah, we don't have public transit, so how does that affect us? So the living wage really takes all of these into account and said, if you are a family of 4, what do you need to have a good life that we would consider to be healthy and happy?
So the BC minimum wage is $16.75 an hour in 2023.
That is correct.
That is a government set level for the minimum wage.
That is correct.
What is the living wage?
Our living wage as of 2023 is $26.51 an hour.
Wowzers.
Yeah.
And that's gone up the last time, 2018, last report, wasn't it around 19
around
something?
$21 in 2020. Actually, I think that was 2020 we actually did the last one. So we try and update it every couple of years. So if you look at BC, that's kind of on par to, say, living in Vancouver.
Right.
Very similar living wage, but it's one of the highest in the provinces.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I say wow, and then this, of course, leads me to the rest of the information on the page: cost of food, household spending on housing, transportation inequality, income inequity. Let's talk about the cost of food, because to me, this is a big deal.
So we actually work with the BC Centre for Disease Control on this. They do every 3 years, I think they do calculations. And this is the first time that they've actually taken into account small, rural, and remote towns, which is incredible that was never even considered. Right. That in the past, small towns and remote towns were never even thought about when it comes to cost of food, which is mind-blowing to me. Yeah. But we do know that food can cost more in more remote locations. I mean, obviously the cost of transportation is a huge factor in the cost of food. So that makes a huge difference out here. And then you also have to consider that a lot of communities out here have that extra mile. I mean, the cost of, say, transportation from a house to get to Tofino to the grocery store has gone up a lot too. So
it's all intertwined. The cost of gas goes up, so the cost of coming to get your food goes up. The cost of the transportation of the trucks that come from wherever they're coming from the mainland to here. It's just wow. So let's talk about that. Can you say that stat? The cost of food?
Are
we on different pages? You're jumping ahead. It's all right. So it's all right. That's page 5.
Well, anyway, so in general, for a family on the coast to purchase what is considered a healthy basket of food for their family is about 20% more than if you were to buy it not on the coast, somewhere else.
Probably that could really be boiled down to transportation costs, trucking, storage. Mostly that is
a huge factor.
I'm making that up, but it makes sense. And because I knew from construction costs that sometimes it's 30+% higher to do, say, a bill or something.
But I think there's a lot of limitations to this information too, because it's really just based on retail prices in a given snapshot of time. And we're forgetting out here how much people do to access food in different ways. I mean, we talk about fishing and harvesting and growing and cultivating, and being able to support a lot of those activities clearly can have a huge impact on food for people.
Right. You want to move on? Let's go to environment.
Let's go. Let's get Janessa
Are we moving into your realm?
All right. This is all Janessa, yeah.
All right, let's go, Janessa. What is important here? What did you learn? What are we going to learn? I just get excited, so you go ahead.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway from the environment section is just learning just the incredible amount of work being done on the environment in Clayoquot Sound and Northern Berkeley Sound. There's just an amazing mosaic of organizations doing incredible work and tapping into priorities that the nations have on restoring their land. And yeah, it's just incredible to be able to showcase that in the report. And just, yeah, it's kind of like there's, good news, bad news in this report. And it's really good to be able to highlight some of the work that's being done. Let's
do it. Let's give some information away. What are you excited about? What is some of the good news? Or do you want to start with bad news or good news?
Let's start with good news.
Yeah. We'll just mix it all up anyway.
Yeah, I think what's really exciting, I'm not going to target any specific stories. I think people can grab a copy of their report and read some interesting pieces of information.
And also come visit you today.
And visit, stop by the office between 3 and 6 today on Main Street. I think what's really exciting that came out of sort of the environment section is this new section on infrastructure sustainability. So that kind of came out as there was, quite a few different projects that we wanted to highlight that weren't quite environmental monitoring or stewardship and restoration. And so we just decided to create a whole new spread on it. And it's really cool to see that the community is growing and responding to environmental needs.
The magazine itself, I'll call it a magazine, booklet. What do you call it? Booklet? Magazine?
I like magazine.
It's
colorful.
It's very attractive.
It's fun to look at.
Did you also, either of you, have anything to do with the artistic layout of this?
No, we have an incredible graphic designer, Marion, who's been working along the way with us to make this as beautiful and visually attractive and easy to read as possible.
It's really great. Something I noticed right away, and I would call this falling into the realm of maybe not bad news as much as something that we may all want to take consideration. Number of salmon returning. It seems to be a lot lower.
It is.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. Clayoquot Sound is a bit unique in the salmon returns across the island, but we also have, a lot of groups doing work on this. And so there's a lot of opportunity to sort of address the issue and move forward. There's the Clayoquot Sound Roundtable that meets twice a year to look at how we can manage these challenges together and develop a rebuilding plan for the area.
Tell me some other good news. Shorebird habitat seems like a pretty good news. Lots of amphibian monitoring.
Yeah, there's a lot of work being done on monitoring. That's, a really important part in stewardship is getting some good baselines so that, we don't change things and then forget. And the really good news is that there's, a lot more protection happening in the area on these important ecosystems.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I see interactions or reported animal sightings. Some have gone down. People see less cougars, but way more bears.
Yeah, that one's interesting. I think that's in general, animal sightings and human wildlife interactions are going up. That's a pretty consistent stat. Yeah. But
more people.
Yeah, right. That just
more
makes
people,
sense.
More interactions. Absolutely.
All right. What else?
And I think it may seem like we're jumping around a lot, like we've talked about the living wage and then costs of food, and then now we're talking about salmon. But this is a collection of data and indicators, but at the end of the day, they're all connected. There's a reason we're talking about salmon, because it has an influence on our food and the way we live. And, all of these things are kind of coming together in this report to tell a bigger story of where we live and how important it is to live sustainably and look to the future.
Well, then as I move, say, to page 10 in my jump around, 1 out of 5 youth missed work or sports activity because they did not have a way to get there or home. This is up from 2018, 19%, 2023, 26%. Now, as you just said, everything's connected. That speaks to the rising cost of everything, right?
Yeah.
Imagine, say, you're a single mom or you're a single dad. It just makes it tougher.
Yeah, and I think that definitely highlights our transportation inequality, which is also on page 10. Just talking about, how much more, Erica touched on this already once before, but just how much more it costs to come from across the water. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely plays a big role in, what people can access, what kind of activities they can do and incorporate into their lives. And we really appreciate our advisory committee. That's definitely something that came out of our big meeting earlier in the spring. We kind of brought together community partners to see, what did they find interesting from the last one and what was missing. And that's definitely something that was missing before that we'd like to highlight this time around.
I think when I look at this, sorry if I didn't mean to interrupt, but I bet a lot of solutions will come from this. Is that something that you find or see? Or, for example, somebody might hear me say that or hear you say that, or they might come visit you this afternoon and go, what can we do about this?
That's absolutely the goal. I mean, this is a collection of data, and it's great to have this information. It really highlights a lot of things we already know, like you said, like people feeling the pinch of higher costs. But it's really meant to be a tool that our communities and our governments, organizations, and even individual people can use to find solutions, to look at priorities, to advocate, to find resources. And we know that this has been useful for that purpose many times in the past. It's been amazing to hear feedback from the community about how valuable this really is, because it is the only place we have this information. It's not easy to get for small communities and out here. That it's just not available anywhere else.
Well, it's really impressive. I'm going to play one song and just give everybody a little break, get a coffee or do your thing, or put in your day timer that, what is the time people can come visit you?
3 till 6
3 till 6. Put in your little day timer or write in crayon on your napkin, depending on your situation, that you can go down and visit. I want to play one song and we're going to come back. All right, we're back. And as always, the exciting conversations that go on when you're listening to music are one of my favorite parts of the radio. Clayoquot Biosphere Trust Vital Signs, 3 to 6 today. Go check it out. It's going to be great, and you'll be able to ask questions and hear people talk more about this. Let's keep moving along. Health and wellness. To me, this is fascinating as well. Emergency department admissions in 2022 to 23 increased 22.8%.
So obviously emergency room visits are going up, but to be honest, it is kind of in step with the population. Yeah. Like the more people we have, the more they go up. The real story is about how we can resource the needs, because as you can imagine, we have some data in here about, there's a few places in here that show how the demand is huge in the summer. It fluctuates wildly from winter to summer, both visitors, for example, emergency calls, park incidents, hospital visits. That's so obvious to us that live here, but that's not obvious out in the bigger world where there's decisions being made about resources and funds. And so that's why this kind of data is so important, is how do you manage those fluctuations and make sure you can still support the population that lives here.
Well, at another point in the book, I learned that I believe the visitor number was like 1.2 million.
So over 1.2 million visitors that's as counted as going to the park last year.
Wow.
Up huge. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
A lot of people.
And you know what? The same thing. What happened to me was I came and I did that 20 plus years ago, and then I just never left.
Yeah.
So that's gotta happen.
Very similar stories.
Yeah. Yeah, that usually happens. Like, why would I work my whole life to come and retire or just come visit? Just come here and live here. And apparently live in Ucluelet. But we'll get to that. We'll get that in a minute.
Ooh, okay.
I kind of
in the hot seat.
Yeah, the health and wellness, regional priorities, top health priority. I just think there's so much great information here. Can you have a baby here now? Will you be able to? People still have to travel out of the community to have a baby. Total births to women from the West Coast.
Yeah, the births are interesting. The number of births to West Coast residents has been pretty steady over the years, but it's now starting to go down. And I did get a little insider information that for 2023, they're down again.
Is that because people have to leave and they're not counted because they get not part of the number because they're in Duncan or Courtney or Victoria?
No, actually. So one piece of information we don't have in here, we've had in past vital signs that might be noticed, is we used to be able to track where people were having their babies, like in Port Alberni or in Nanaimo, and that data isn't being tracked anymore. So we actually don't have that. We know it's not here, but we actually don't know where, which is tough because, there's so many amazing people in our healthcare system that are really trying to advocate for more support, because it's a huge deal to have to leave to have your kid. Like if you have other kids, your job, the costs, it's a big deal.
I did it twice.
Yeah.
And both times, one in Duncan and one in Victoria. Mm-hmm. And we struggled to find a place in Comox for the time we needed, and it was very costly. Wow. It really changed our life. But also in the end, it's kind of why I own a house, because I moved away, and then when it came back, I couldn't find anywhere to stay. And I thought, I know lots of people. It shouldn't be a problem. And this is like 10 years ago. But I couldn't find a place, and it ended up through word of mouth that I was very fortunate to find a house.
Well, you definitely hit on a very hot topic from Vital Signs, which is housing.
It
is like...
All right. Is that the next page?
Well, I don't know if it's the next page,
let's just go there. Let's just go.
I mean, through all of our consultations and, getting people from the community and local governments and organizations together, this is it. This is the top item constantly. And that's not a surprise to anyone. We do face a lot of challenges, obviously increasing prices, but we also have a limit to how much room there is to build houses, and that's true in all the communities on the coast.
Wow. Average number of available rental units per month in Ucluelet and Tofino.
So this is we actually had a big debate about putting this in or not, because the CBT, there is some data the CBT does collect on its own. We don't just, if there's gaps, if there's data that's not available elsewhere, we do some tracking. So since 2012, we've actually recorded on a monthly basis the advertising of rental units, but it's just getting to the point where they're not advertised. Just straight up, like when there's stuff available, it's not being advertised, it's not being put out there. Even on Facebook pages, it's all a lot of word of mouth. It's all who you know. So we actually really we don't even know anymore. We don't know what our what is it, vacancy rate. We don't know what it is anymore. We don't know what's available.
But it's nice to know that you're within the realm, right? I mean, that's
we know it's going down. We know the trend for sure.
Well, who knows what will happen with I had Mayor Dan Lawn yesterday. We were talking about May 1st, when the new provincial legislation comes into effect of the Airbnb situation, and that might shift things, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, it's also a good point, because there's certain information we've tracked over the years, but we also have to acknowledge there's stuff we're missing. So a really huge exercise of doing this report is, what do we not have? And now we can put, hopefully, put into place ways to collect that data for the next Vital Signs. So we want to hear from people, what is missing from here? We don't have a lot of information about affordable housing in here, because it's so new that it hasn't really been accounted for. So we want to hear from the community, from people, what are you not seeing in this report? Tell us. We'll find a way to start looking at that for our next Vital Signs.
But they have to come visit you today.
Oh, yes, come visit
coffee
us.
And snacks. I always like a good opportunity to say thank you to all of the volunteer fire people on the West Coast. So this is a good one. Fire department call volume. This probably, if I look at the numbers, you say, of course, population has increased by a certain percent. 175 calls in 2019. Population goes up. 319 calls in 2022 in Tofino. 148 in 2019 in Ucluelet. 189 calls in Ucluelet. That is a very big increase.
Yeah, I'm not
for volunteers.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with this particular data. I don't know if Janessa is as well, so I don't know if I can speak too
She's
well.
She's just shaking her head.
So I don't know how well I can speak to these particular ones. But this is also new this year, is trying to find better ways to understand our capacity to respond to emergencies. And fire department is one piece of that, but there has been so much creativity and so much initiative in our communities around emergency response and first responders, and putting in the hands of community members, as opposed to just relying on institutions that, like you said, we have firefighters totally volunteer in all the communities. So that's a really good news story, I think, from Vital Signs this year. Yeah, I think that's a really good highlight.
Well, a shout out to everyone who dedicates so much time and energy to helping keep other people safe. We thank you. We can all agree on that, right?
Absolutely.
Lots of phone calls today. Okay, let's move to what do you want to talk about? Youth?
We can definitely talk about youth, because youth in particular is just an it's definitely a priority. I guess what I'm trying to get at is vital signs, like our vital signs report. It's not just us that do this. Other communities all across the country do vital signs reports as well. And so it's actually a national program. And so you can go to other cities and other areas and kind of get the same stuff: housing, learning, education, transportation. But one of the unique things about ours is that we really try and bring a voice to youth. We've heard over and over again how important it is to support and care for our youth here on the coast. It's true across any area. When we talk about housing, transportation, the environment, I mean, youth come up every time in every community. And so we really try and focus a little bit of time on that.
Is there a body that takes all that information, say provincially, and works out the stats on a provincial level with all the information they get from organizations like yours? Does that question even make sense? I think.
No. I guess, I mean, Vital Signs was created out of the need because there was the lack of information for small communities and for certain organizations. So
it just seems like it would help provincially then to know, like, how many people moved to BC from Alberta. And
well, I mean, that's where you're really looking at Statistics Canada, and you're looking at census data and stuff the government collects. But then when you get down to a level like ours, it's just not relevant, and it doesn't work
all right.
anymore.
And I'm jumping around. So let's go back to kids. What pops out for you? What did you learn from gathering this information?
I'm just kind of skipping to the youth section here. So one of the things that we do for the region is a survey of youth every couple of years. So in the high school, so it's about ages 13 to 18, I guess, would be kind of the top range, and really give them a chance to say, what do you want to share? What do you want the communities to know? And this is actually information that is used by people who work in the schools, people who work with youth to bring programs that kids want and to find supports that kids want. And I think one of the biggest challenges is we were really trying to find out, what impact COVID had on the kids here on the coast. Because we hear anecdotally, and I'm sure everyone listening has talked to friends and family about what challenges there were for kids over that time. Yeah. But we found that that's really difficult to do. Overall, the great news about our coast is that youth generally report being physically really well, like they, eating, exercising, having support from their family, their friends, their communities. But we do see a big impact on mental health. Like a lot of youth are reporting a lot more issues around their mental health and anxieties and stress. So, so I hope that, this might be something we talk about, but the idea is to bring some information, some data, the things that the youth themselves are saying to help support decisions.
Sorry, I was just looking at too, because one of my things going through COVID was I was wondering how it would affect people kind of on a longer term basis, right? And that included substance abuse, alcohol, drugs, that kind of thing, household abuse. And those numbers really went skyrocketing during that time. And I'm just reading a bit. You've got a part in here in the health and wellness section talking about substance abuse. We won't go down that path maybe right now, but it's. I'm grateful that people are looking at it and considering it, right?
Yeah, and the hard truth is we still don't really know the long-term effects.
Yeah.
I think everyone kind of understands the impacts and just from their own lives, and hopefully some of this information will help support some of those solutions.
Well, that's why I think it's a good idea to go visit you from 3 to 6 today. Are you doing it today and tomorrow?
Just today. Now, if you can't make it down to visit us, but you should, we're going to have snacks and coffee, and there'll be great conversations. But we will, over the next week, be coming out, hitting the streets and going to each community to make sure everyone can access reports. We're going to drop them off at places like government offices, health centers, schools, some coffee shops probably, so you can grab one in the morning. But we hope you'll come today.
Will you be clearly marked? So people, if they see you walking around with a big stack of these things, they can come up and say, hi, hey, I heard you on the radio, I have a question.
We've got a staff of 10? How many staff do we have? 10 people. I think we'll all be toting them around. Anytime you see us, just let us know.
Let's make today even more enticing. I'm just having fun. What kind of snacks?
Oh
Any idea?
I actually don't know. Good ones.
Good snacks.
Ones.
So listen, folks, go get some good snacks. All right, I'm gonna jump to people in work because I thought this was a fascinating statistic. I'm on page 22. Residential building permits from 2012 to 2017. The majority of permits each year were issued in Tofino. From 2018 to 22, the majority are issued in Ucluelet, and those numbers are huge.
So we've always tracked residential building permits. It's it's a pretty standard indicator of building and of the economy and the growth of communities. That's pretty normal. But I think this is the first time we broke it out a little bit because I think there is people kind of feel that Tofino's growing so fast, and it's but there's Ucluelet's taking off too.
is sprouting like a healthy weed.
Oh yeah, some of the biggest population growth in construction, growth in businesses has been actually in Ucluelet.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So if you thought you were happy because Ucluelet was a sleepy little town, guess what? People are 1.2 million plus people are coming. So holy mackerel. This is an interesting section as we go. Belonging and leadership. I thought that was really a good thing to see.
It's really a tough one. Like, how do you measure that?
Well, yeah, and it's indicative, and there's information here that will point to how we're growing and where we're growing. For example, since starting in 2021, Coastal Queer Alliance has hosted 35 events. These pieces of information are interesting,
Yeah, I don't think it's something that people really think about either. So, part of being in a healthy and happy community is having that feeling of belonging and having that sense that you're part of something. And it's been really great to see, for example, you were talking about youth, as year after year, more youth are reporting that they feel like they belong, that they feel like they have a say in their community. That's so amazing to see because those are going to be that's the future.
Right. Well, and on that note, one of the many amazing statistics, voter turnout for the provincial election in 2020, 25% in 2020 compared to 53.4% province-wide. But maybe that number will go up, or you know what I mean? Or here, voter turnout for the municipal election, 24% 2022, 64% in 2018. Well, that's down. So if you want to feel involved in your community, you vote. Get out there.
That's a very, very, very easy way.
Boy, there's so many fascinating things here. So but I'm not just going to sit here and read it now. What have I missed? Yanasa, what do you want to bring up? Oh, you're on the spot. So, yeah, I want to know, what else do we need to know that's in here that maybe when you were doing it, you're like, wow, I didn't know that, or I'm fascinated by this.
Yeah, I just maybe want to highlight the center spread here on truth and reconciliation. This is new this year, and yeah, it just really highlights a lot of the work that's highlights a lot of the history of the region, and also, a lot of the work that's being done and things that you can participate in and go and see. And yeah, I just wanted to highlight that one.
And I think it's great. And I think when people take the time and they take this home with them and they sit there and have a little family time, or however you want to digest it all, there's a lot of information to digest here.
There is a lot of information, and yeah, it's tough because it's a collection of different numbers and data, but it tells a big story about
us,
about the region, about the importance of our connection to where we are, who we are, and how we work together.
I love it. I just want to say thanks for making time to come talk to me and everybody that's listening. And I really, again, want to encourage people 3 to 6, head down to Main Street to the Clayoquot Biosphere Trust offices and meet all the people, maybe not everybody, but most of the people that probably took part. Because this is kind of a party for you all.
Oh,
right?
My gosh. This is definitely a party day for us. Right? We are definitely celebrating. Yeah.
I think it's great.
We can't wait to share with everyone. And as I said, everyone listening, they'll find themselves in here somewhere. They're going to find some information that's fascinating that they'll want to share either at work or at home or with others.
I love it. Yanasa, thank you.
Thank you.
Did great. Thanks, Erica.
Thanks.